How humans survived the Ice Age. Approximately 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth formed as a result of a supernova, a stellar explosion. When the Earth was first formed, there were constantly erupting volcanoes and magma flows on its surface. Also, meteorites were hitting our planet all the time. In fact, one of these meteorites was so large that it tore off a piece of the Earth and formed the moon that orbits us. Water had formed from the rock and ice on the Earth's surface, but because the Earth did not yet have an atmosphere, this water was boiling and constantly escaping into space. The heavier elements were constantly flowing towards the center of the Earth, and so the core and outer crust of our planet continued to form. As the outer crust cooled, water was coming out of the surface and the Earth's atmosphere began to stabilize. 500 million years ago, water vapor seeping from the surface began to cool and condense. As a result, it rained for thousands of years. Asteroids and comets were still hitting Earth during this period of rainfall, so they were still carrying water to Earth. When this period ended 3.8 billion years ago, oceans had formed. Thanks to the ideal temperatures of the Earth's location, the oceans were able to survive. The last of all these calamities that the Earth has endured has been the Ice Ages. As far as we know, our planet has experienced 5 major ice ages. These are the Huronian, Cryogenian, Andean-Saharan, Late Paleozoic and Quaternary glaciations. Human history did not exist during many of these ice ages. So how did the ice ages begin? In fact, there is no definitive information on this issue. One of the theories that may cause this is the movement of continents. According to scientists, as a result of the movement of the continents, the tropical water passage between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans ended as a result of the closure of the Panama Passage between the North and South American continents. With the end of the water passage, warm and salty water came to the north of the world, which increased precipitation in high latitudes. The snow from the precipitation accumulated in glaciers and caused large ice sheets to form. Ice sheets also deflected the incoming sun rays, causing the Earth to cool down. According to another theory, oxygenic photosynthesis in the oceans reduced the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and led to the formation of glaciers within 1 million years. Scientists suggest a similar cause in the Paleozoic era. They suggest that the evolution of land plants led to an increase in the amount of oxygen and a decrease in greenhouse gases, leading to the beginning of the Paleozoic era. The ice age that concerns us today is the Pleistocene, the first and longest phase of the Quaternary period, colloquially known as the Ice Age. What makes the Pleistocene period important for us is that it was the only ice age that humanity has ever seen and how humanity managed to survive it. From now on, I will refer to the Pleistocene epoch as the glacial epoch to make it easier to understand. The glacial epoch covers the period from about 2.5 million years to 11,700 years before present. The end of this ice age coincides with the end of the Paleolithic age in archaeology. The period from this time until today is called the Holocene. The first modern humans emerged just in time for the ice age. Homo sapiens, the first modern humans, started to evolve about 300,000 years ago. This makes the ice age the only glacial period that humanity has ever known. The first modern humans began to leave Africa around 70,000 to 100,000 years ago and managed to spread over most of the world. The surface of the continents expanded as the sea level dropped by up to 100 meters lower than normal. This brought Australia and Africa closer together, and humans were able to reach the Australian continent by boat some 35,000 to 65,000 years ago. They migrated to Europe about 45,000 years ago. 30,000 years ago, with the disappearance of the Bering Strait and the formation of the land bridge, Asia and America were joined and migration began. As glaciers began to retreat from north to south during this period, places like Scandinavia, Siberia and northern England became too difficult for humans to live in. But contrary to popular belief, the Earth did not turn into a snowball. Only 30% of the land was covered by glaciers. In fact, during the Ice Age, the Earth was not under glaciers all the time. There were 20 subcycles in which glaciers melted from time to time and milder climates were experienced. During the Ice Age, which was characterized by harsh conditions, the number of people decreased drastically and dropped to about 1 million. Much of northern Europe was dominated by tundra and forests dominated Spain, Greece and the Balkans. People have tried to adapt to these changing climates. Some people are hunters and fishermen, trying to hunt and shelter on the edges of glaciers. Other people hunted and gathered food and tried to live in the shelters they built in the forests. And all of them had to develop tools, hunting techniques, and social skills appropriate to their environment in order to survive. The Ice Age had serious impacts on all living things on Earth. Glaciers, which were constantly moving from north to south, restricted animals' living and feeding space. The woolly mammoth, mastodon, saber-toothed cats, woolly rhinoceros, cave bears, and megatherium, the giant sloth, among many others, became extinct. Alongside these extinct animals, animals such as kangaroos, bears, dogs, cats, rabbits, and monkeys have survived. This extinction didn't affect Africa too much. Crocodiles, lizards, turtles, pythons, and other reptiles, as well as birds, ducks, geese, hawks, and eagles flourished during this period. So how did humans achieve this? How did they survive, and why did they migrate? Don't forget to follow our channel and like the video for more informative videos. One of the most important elements of this success is the development of language. With the development of language some 50,000 years ago, people were able to communicate, plan, act collectively, and solve problems. The decrease in natural food resources on the African continent caused conflicts between human communities. With the development of language, they were able to evaluate the problems together and discuss the search for new living spaces. When they migrated from Africa to colder climates further north, they used primitive clothing for protection. They did not dress as we know it. They just covered their bodies with animal skins. Later, they learned how to make fire by rubbing sticks together and how to make needles out of bones and sew clothes from animal skins, and they began to dress in the real sense. They made yarn from wild flax and vegetable fibers and sewed clothes from the skins of animals such as reindeer, Arctic foxes, and rabbits to protect themselves from the cold. They even began to make not only hand tools but also ornaments from bones and shells. They have enabled the sharing of knowledge between neighboring communities and, most importantly, the transmission of knowledge from generation to generation through storytelling, through music, dance, and wall paintings. Information about the seasons, edible plants, animal migration routes, and the seasons was passed on between communities and to subsequent generations. The animals that late glacial people hunted for survival are depicted on cave walls, as seen in detailed cave paintings at sites such as Lascaux and Chauvet in France. Researchers have discovered that Europe was dominated by a community called the Gravettians. They were distinguished by their technological, artistic, and funerary methods. They identified 134 different types of beads made from animal bones, teeth, shells, amber, and stone. Some resembled fish tails, others owls. With the development of weapons such as spears, bows, and arrows, they were able to kill even large mammals and thus obtain food. They started to make these weapons by using rock chisels, cutting and chiseling bones and horns. The grooved and notched spearheads they started to make from bone and horn were hard, durable, and lightweight, allowing them to spread to larger hunting grounds. But they did not stop there. Thanks to the use of language, they were also able to organize their hunting. At a famous hunting ground in eastern France, for example, they were able to gather animals at migration times. Every autumn and spring, they built fires to gather herds of wild horses and reindeer in a narrow valley and hunt them there. The animals that entered this area were hunted safely and easily. They began to dry the meat of the abundant animals they hunted so that they could eat it in summer and winter. They preferred rock shelters for shelter. To protect themselves from the cold winds, they stretched animal skins in front of the shelters and laid large skins on the rock ledges. Inside these shelters they built leather tents supported by wooden poles. Inside the tents, they spread grass and animal skins to cut the cold as much as possible. Hunting and climate change led to the extinction of land animals such as mammoths, giant kangaroos, and mastodons. As the number of animals declined and they began to build semi-permanent settlements, they began to discover new sources of food. They began to move from nomadic life to settled life and laid the foundations of agriculture. As you can see from all of this, the people of the world have managed to survive in times when the Earth's people were struggling to survive because they were able to unite, strategize collectively against problems, and pass on the solutions they found to the next generations after humanity started to speak. If language had not been developed, perhaps we would not be in the world today and would have disappeared like extinct animals.